Other fallout from this shutdown may actually be America's economic data. So even if you're not a Wall Street trader, these are numbers that are actually going to impact your life each and every day. And the White House confirms what we've already been reporting, that last month's reports are likely lost for good.
The Democrats may have permanently damaged the federal statistical system with October CPI and jobs reports likely never being released. And all of that economic data released will be permanently impaired, leaving our policymakers at the Fed flying blind at a critical period.
Who's to blame for the shutdown is still up for debate, but now a rate cut looks less likely than it did a day ago. Let's go to NewsNation's Alicia Nieves. She's tracking this one for Wall Street. Alicia, what impact will the lack of data actually have on the Fed's willingness to actually lower those interest rates?
Yeah, good morning, Alex. It's certainly moving the needle. I mean, this time yesterday when I was reporting on, the economic data coming out and the potential for a rate cut, it was looking at 70% or close to 70%. Now that's diminished to about 51.7%, almost a 20% drop and a virtual toss-up whether we actually get a rate cut in about 4 weeks from now. And that is because Fed Chair Powell, the broader FOMC, Federal Open Market Committee, that makes a decision when it comes to these benchmark interest rates, they're going to have to make the decision in December 10th to be exact, with data from September. That means data that at that point is 3 months old. It's not going to help the FOMC that has already been divided and split on an interest rate cut for months now. The hope was that you'd had October's data, maybe even November's data that could help bridge some of that divide. But what we're seeing now instead is a very higher probability that both sides are going to dig their heels in. One side saying we should get a rate cut, the other side saying that we're not going to get a rate cut. And just more broadly here, without this data, for October and November, we will get some from September. It puts the Fed in a position where the picture isn't as clear as it wants to be. Fed Chair Powell said in the past, not having economic data is really akin to driving in the fog. Really dangerous, especially when you have to make a big decision about a rate cut that could ripple through the economy, Alex.
So, Alicia, what are those analysts actually seeing or maybe not seeing that would make them cautious to cut those rates?
Yeah, the economy right now is in this weird place where you've got a lot of people on Wall Street, even, federal authorities concerned about stagflation. That's basically when we see inflation elevated, relatively high, and we see the labor market jobs kind of sit at a standstill. Based off the data that we do have from the government, albeit, dated data, it shows that inflation still elevated. 3% was what we got in September for the CPI print. That's a little bit lower than predicted for President Trump's new tariffs to be in place. But again, it's higher than the Fed's goal of 2%. And so it's got FOMC members debating on whether tariff-driven price hikes, those are temporary, because if they're not and we cut rates, it's only going to drive inflation higher, and that's a huge risk. Then when you look at the labor picture, the latest jobs reports that we have shows that employers have hired on average about 29,000 people each month for the month of June through August. That is dismal in comparison to what we saw the same time last year, which was closer to around 168,000 jobs. So, if demand for workers is still in fact down, a rate cut really would be important to try and stimulate the economy. But it boils down to which member of the FOMC is willing to take on risk and which ones are risk averse. There is that concern that, if you stimulate the economy and you have inflation run up higher, we get back to where we were at during the pandemic. And we all know how tough it was to bring inflation down. So all of this not really helping, not getting the economic data, not going to help the FOMC and the Fed in 4 weeks from now, Alex.
Yeah, some tough decisions ahead.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.